Alright, so I'm actually trying to script this video, so I'm going to be looking over to the screen a lot, but it's still more just like I wrote down my rant. Um, so here we go. Violet Evergarden is really just meh. 6 out of 10. Initial rating, not broken down. Stay if you want to know why I thought it was meh, we can converse, but I'm likely not going to remember everything in writing the script. Also, spoilers, probably, because I don't know how to do a spoiler for your review. Anyways, I first picked up the show after running out of literally anything else to watch, and because I had heard so many people claiming it to be an amazing show that made them cry. Literally, one of my classmates called it the best anime ever, and told me that they cried at the end of nearly every single episode. Now, I do not know if it was because I watched the dub or not. It probably was because I was too lazy to change it and I started the show on a big TV, and for some reason Netflix defaulted that to the dub, and then I just got too used to it, but it's whatever. The dialogue and the writing present did not come off as brilliant as others have called it, but dull, expected, and emotionless. But majikcheezit, I hear you cry out. Violet doesn't have emotion because she was traumatized by the war and was trained to keep her emotions to herself, and to that I say, you're right. Uh, a brief summary of the show is that this 15 yeah, year old girl was a killing machine during the war. She survived the war, but her commanding officer, the only person that seemed to give a shit about her, did not. So she becomes what is called an auto memories doll and writes letters for people in order to know what love is. I wanna know what love is. And more or less calls it, and other people more or less call that like the redemption arc that she has. But that's not really what I got out of the show. What I got out of it was more or less this: I can't feel emotions. Okay then, right. Then after writing for enough people, I know what love is now. Maybe, kinda. I have an overall general dislike for this show. Due to Violet's progression of learning how to write emotional stuff seems to be very sudden as she's dealing with the same issue even at the very last moment, which is honestly realistic. That overcoming something as traumatizing as war is never really done, it's an ongoing process. The only letter that really comes close to meaning anything is the very last letter she writes to whatever the heck his name was. I probably should have looked that up, and the fact that I scripted that makes this worse. And the only reason it comes close is because we have spent so much time learning about Violet, and the last letter she writes to a dead dude is still about ego and emotion, but it is her honest thoughts, and you start to feel bad for her because she's somewhat learned how to convey her own emotion through paper. Anyways, Violet's character as a whole, even without her crappy dubbed voice, I'm sorry whoever did that dub, but that was bad. It's not really relatable, to me at least. I cannot relate to her situation. It's one of the few times that I have a mental depression, and even then it's actually usually leading to hyper emotion, not apathy. um, so I have a problem with that. The other thing that Violet has is what seems to be a lack of empathy. She cannot seem to relate to others on a surface level, or at least that's how the writers want you to see it. But really, she always had empathy. She just could not express it well, and the writers do kind of show that. Um, the show seems to want to create this idea that, like, hey, we're gonna make you cry because Violet is such an airhead and you want to love her because she doesn't know what love is. Also, she can't feel your love because, well, she can't, trauma. Um, I think I would have been more okay with the show if it had decided to follow one course of action near the end. Romance, politics, or war. Because it did all three, and that really annoyed me because it was pumping out plot points in the last couple episodes like freaking Catholic rabbits. Um, the show, at least the dub, is pretty meh because it felt like it was really poorly executed, like with the voice acting and everything else, the pacing. I'll get to that. The premise of the show is alone is likely enough to make your heart drop, like you feel bad for this girl, but if it's done wrong, it just leaves nothing behind. It rushes through each plot point and does not give enough time at all to feel attached to the characters. I find myself thinking that this show could have been done a lot better if the protagonist was a little bit more relatable, and if the show was not limited to 13 episodes. Um, and by relatable, I think I mean like not talking in a robotic voice 1000% of the time. Like I get that that's part of her character because she was involved in a war, but that really does not excuse that in my mind. Um, like her character was just kind of flawed from the start. Um, and again, for clarification, I don't have a problem with slow-paced shows. Um, this show was episodic, just like Cowboy Bebop. And what I have a problem with is when the finale comes out of the dirt and shoves itself up my ass and expects me to enjoy it. It's it was really just eh. Like it again, like the pacing just comes out of flipping nowhere and it ugh. Um but and now I'm gonna do the full breakdown review, which I originally did not intend to do, but here we go. Music, 7 out of 10. Love the soundtrack. More accurately, I loved it for a hot minute, but overall, I just kind of forgot about it. Like it's not something I would go raving about, so that's meh. Overall plot, 3 out of 10. It has a good premise, but it has poor execution in terms of writing. And this is also mostly where I put my pacing scores, anyways. And I just said, I think the pacing is just completely stupid. I didn't like it. Um, Impact, 2 out of 10. I felt nothing from Evergarden. And at the end, it certainly did not leave a lasting impact as something like Rascal or Anohana would leave. And I only decided to do this review because while looking up resources for a Rascal review, like a full in-depth Rascal review, I saw a reference to this show and I thought, well, I already reviewed Rascal, so let's go with that instead. The average episode score is a 3 out of 10. I don't think I can express how boring the show was to me and how it made me feel like I could be doing literally anything else. So, 3 out of 10. Characters, 4 out of 10. I think I've made myself clear on how much I disliked Violet. Um, but I will gladly rant in the comments if someone asks me a specific question about Violet's character or is like, what about this redeeming quality that she had? And I can probably put it down because I no. Animation, 9 out of 10. Beautiful, but at the same time kind of basic. Like it's solid animation. I'll give it that, but it's a 9 out of 10. Because reasons. I could give it a 10 out of 10, and it wouldn't change the final score too much. Um, and then the overall comedy score doesn't apply here like it does for Bebop and um, Rascal because this show doesn't have any comical aspects. And so I'm saving it the trouble of being out of 70 and instead out of 60. So the overall score is 4.6 out of 10. Uh, and remember, we started at 6 out of 10. So this just kind of proves my point that whenever I do a full breakdown, the scores actually do go down. All right, see ya.